What up, tribe? Welcome to another episode of Our Story, 1977 Roots, Season 2.
This program contains subject matter and language that may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
They don't know our story. Yeah. They don't know what we've been through, baby. They're all on the outside looking in. But we still gon' do what we want to. Touching conversations. A bunch of apologizing and explaining, but we live and we learn. Hey, I bet they ain't think that we would make it, but we overcame it. This shit ain't nothing to play with. Family over everything is still the same shit, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. Nah, we've been through hell and back, but we're still standing on all 10. Hey, you know how we do it, we go all in. Yeah, it's us over everybody. Why when it's trouble in paradise, nosy motherfuckers wanna hear about it. Let's be clear about it. We don't make decisions based on their opinions. We can't expect, nor can we make them see the vision, as long as we know the business. Cause they don't know our story. Yeah. They don't know what we've been through, baby. They're all on the outside looking in. But we still gon' do what we want to. Never said it would be easy, but when you commit to shit, you gotta keep on fighting for who and what you believe in. Believe it, cause I ain't going nowhere, baby. I'll be here till the end of time. Take no chances, I won't jeopardize. You know I won't, cause true love only happens once. I know my past ain't pretty, yeah, but she still ride with me, yeah. You see, this ain't for everybody. So I when it's trouble in paradise, nosy motherfuckers wanna hear about it. Let's be clear about it. We don't make decisions based on their opinions. We can't expect, nor can we make them see the vision, as long as we know the business. Cause they don't know our story. They don't know what we've been through, baby. They're all on the outside looking in. But we still gon' do what we want to.
I'm free, y'all. I need everybody to repeat after me. I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary.
Now, before we jump into this episode, I just want to explain something to you. In Season 1, I explained that the American Indian Negro was reclassified from Indian to color to Negro and so on down to African American. This was a major obstacle that even today we're still fighting against. And as we are now in Season 2, I'd like to show you another obstacle that was put in place to hinder the reclassified American Indian Negro of North America. COINTEL Pro. Check this out.
So, let's talk about COINTEL Pro, right? COINTEL Pro is just basically what it always been since the beginning of the time. Get niggas to sell out niggas for whatever. For money, for power, for fame, for immunity, for freedom, whatever is the selling point to the Negro, right? Because remember, we was talking about how to sell to a Negro. So if we want a Negro to sell out his people, we got to understand what's the price for that. What is the price for a Negro to sell out their people? And whatever that price is, we gonna pay them. Insert COINTELPRO.
So long live neighborhood Nip. But his demise was a calculated assassination and organized hit, and it ain't have a damn thing to do with his past life as a Crip. So whether it was a hater or the government, perhaps we'll never know. His shooter could have been one or the other, or he could have been both. But always question the official story because we've been here before. But the murder of our leaders by the government dates back to J. Edgar Hoover and COINTELPRO. The counterintelligence program designed by J. Edgar Hoover used all kinds of tactics and illegal maneuvers to destroy our people, organizations, and leaders we still admire to prevent our unification and the rise of a black messiah. I mean, Chicago ain't been the same since the feds conspired to shoot Chairman Fred dead in his bed while he slept next to the pregnant woman that he was soon set to wed. So that's why when you see me, I'll forever throw up a fist for Huey P. Because I can guarantee there's still Panthers serving sentences for trumped up charges and unjust pleas that they cop in 73. And please believe me, Hoover knew exactly what to do. Because once you take a tree and poison its roots, you can allow it to wither and self-destruct so it bears nothing but poison fruit. And as I assess our community, much of his work to oppress and hinder our progress was carried out with success. Because I know most of y'all probably still believe the Nation of Islam assassinated Malcolm X. And I know we presently honor MLK and he has his own day, but this is the craziest thing. The ones who quote Dr. King are the same ones responsible for killing the dream, because before he was taken by the bullets of an assailant, Dr. King himself was scrutinized and placed under heavy FBI surveillance. After he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, the FBI sent a letter and an audio sex tape of his marital indiscretions to his front door. They threatened to expose him and he just took it in stride, but in that same letter they tried to convince Dr. King to commit suicide. So always think critically since we've already been through it, and remember our oppressors won't always have white skin, because sometimes they'll send our own people in to do it.
So one of the things that we have to remember as a people, that there's always some type of psychological operation going on here in our environment. So you think about it, just go back to the FBI and Mr. Hoover, right? Mr. Hoover was of Negro descent, as they said. Now, he hid it because he passed. And what he did is he did everything he could to disrupt black not entrepreneur, but enterprise in a whole. There had to be something criminal with it in that arena. And you think about these agencies that have been put together to think tank ways of destructive introductions of tomorrows for us. They've been in place. You think about every one of our leaders that have been assassinated, it was because some agency was involved in it. You know, and the people who were in those agencies were not necessarily non-people of color. You know, and that old saying, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, is true.
Party leaders Mark Clark and Fred Hampton were killed in the raid. 4 of the 7 surviving occupants of the apartment were wounded. All were charged with assault and attempted murder.
I remember walking out of the office and looking through a little clearing over on the next block, which was right in front of the Monroe Street address, and seeing a lot of police cars over there. And at that time, Bobby Rush came to the office. He had just come from over there, or maybe the coroner's office. In any case, we walked back over there, and we both were speechless. We just walked through the house and saw what had taken place and where he died, and it was shocking. And then I was, I just began to realize that the information that I had supplied leading up to that moment had facilitated that raid. I knew that indirectly I had contributed, and I felt it, and I felt bad about it. And then I got mad, and then I had to conceal those feelings, which made it worse. I couldn't say anything. I just had to continue to play the role.
FBI headquarters authorized payment of a $300 bonus to informant William O'Neill for, quote, uniquely valuable services which he rendered over the past several months, unquote.
So when we deal in the time period of the late 60s, 69, 70, 73, 74, 75, again, we have to go back to the political, social front of so-called black people. And you begin to see, out of chaos, out of the murder of King, out of the murder of Everts, after Emmett Till, after Malcolm X, and many others who were assassinated and wiped off, one has to ask themselves, who would have the know-how and the mindset to arrange assassinations in such a way it's politically driven? And that's when one has to understand who a young FBI agent later will become the pinnacle of conversation when it comes to COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO stands for cooperative intelligence, basically, or counterintelligence. And this is when we start to see those black movements being infiltrated. I mean, from the grassroots, they were infiltrated. And you see, in my mind, three main characters stick out, and that's Bobby Seale, Edward Cleaver, and of course, Huey P. Newton. Fred Hampton was unfortunately unalived at a young age due to these COINTELPRO operations. And the whole thing that blows my mind is a famous quote that was said by Hoover, who is a melanated person. Go look it up. Hoover said the whole point of COINTELPRO was to prevent the rise of a black messiah. And those words echo throughout the 70s to say, well, who are we looking for to come save us? And we had several saviors to come save the minds of so-called black people. But COINTELPRO, one of those things that actually turned the tables upside down for so-called Negroes. I mean, surveillance, infiltration, prejudice, perjury, police harassment, of which, while the Black Panthers were started initially to patrol the patrol, to police the police, now COINTELPRO brings a militarization aspect to the forefront that ends up toppling many of these black organizations. The COINTELPRO infiltrated everything from the Black Panther Party movement to the Nation of Islam. Everything was infiltrated by the FBI.
This is the Chicago Tribune, front page. Front page. Okay? J. Edgar Hoover, the #1 lawman in the world. Chicago Tribune, Friday, March the 10th, 1978. Front page, FBI memo, use mob against Dick Gregory. This man, the most powerful lawman, sent a telex to the Chicago FBI, and I got a copy siphoned off. I had it before they had it. What's it say there? Listen to it. Listen. Headlines.
FBI memo, use mob against Dick Gregory.
First paragraph.
The late J. Edgar Hoover ordered the Chicago office of the FBI to develop measures to neutralize.
That means kill me, huh?
Yep.
Kill me, okay?
Black comedian Dick Gregory, and suggested the measures should include alerting LA Cosa Nostra to verbal attacks. Gregory...
I said they lower than dogs, they lower than rats. He said, let them know what he say about them, and they'll kill me. If I thought the God I pray to couldn't protect me against this type of filth, I'd be the first one to help them pull the trigger, okay? And so when you stop and think about this America, we do stuff here that would make Hitler blush, huh?
Insert COINTELPRO, right? COINTELPRO, we dealt with COINTELPRO in the 60s, ramped it up in the 70s to where J. Edgar Hoover, he had fouls on people in the 90s, like 80s, 90s. Like J. Edgar Hoover was like, he was very, very vicious when it came to monitoring the Negro people, right? The CIA, media, all of these type of things. So, you know, during the 70s, hip hop was created. right? And you know, hip hop, 80s it became prevalent, 90s it became prevalent, but they always had to find a way to control it. But it's the same with the HBCUs. Anything that we got, we're going to have to find a way to control it. And how do we control it? We control it by having a house nigga. We put this house nigga in place. This house nigga is going to be the messenger to the regular niggas. And now this is how we're going to get our agendas pushed. And this is how we're going to get them to self-destruct from the inside, all through COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO is just it's a byproduct of any intelligence agency. Any nation that has a invested interest in keeping something down, they gonna always have a COINTELPRO operation, and you gotta have brothers who's willing to do it one way or another. Most of the time, though, they just get brothers who got something against them, don't want to do no time or don't want to be exposed for something, and they use them brothers to send in on stuff. Infiltrate, figure out what's going on, then take out a threat. We got Fred Hampton was, everybody I think seen the documentary or the movie about him, and how the brother that they used, the CIA used, sent in, or FBI used, and sent in and got all the information, made sure they knew how to hit them, when to hit them, where to hit them. But we see that even still to this day, it's not always, they don't always kill the brothers. Sometimes they just infiltrate and have a brother raise up in the ranks and stay there and be running stuff. My personal opinion is people like Jesse Jackson and all them are COINTELPRO too. They again, boule, but at the same time COINTELPRO, because at some point in time they had to infiltrate before they got raised up to the highest ranks to have us believe in certain things that come out their mouth without any investigation, without any verification. But to get around COINTELPRO is damn near impossible. They did it with the Black Panthers. They did it with the Bloods and Crips. They did it with just about everything that we establish and speak on openly, because there'll always be people willing to sell you a river to fix their own situation. So I don't think you can get around COINTELPRO, but at the same time, what you can do is just limit the amount of people in a movement.
COINTELPRO, people say it and don't really know what it means. It's actually short for, I want to tell you the wrong thing. It's actually short for Counterintelligence Program. What it was designed for by the FBI, may I add, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, it was meant to disrupt activities of the communist parties. People like the Black Panthers are considered communists.
In America, black people are treated very much as the Vietnamese people or any other colonized people, because we're brutalized. The police in our community occupy our area. Our community as a foreign troop occupies territory. And the police are there not to, in our community, not to promote our welfare or for our security and our safety, but they're there to contain us, to brutalize us and murder us, because they have their orders to do so.
The racist pig cops must stop their wanton murder and brutality or suffer the wrath of the armed black people in their black communities defending themselves.
Once you start to dig deeper into the operation of COINTELPRO, for some of you who know me, maybe now it makes sense why you understand that I'm in no support of all of us need to come together. I'm definitely not in support of that, because all of us do not need to come together. This is the perfect example of all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
They look at things from a people's perspective and not a government's point of view. Everything starting from 68, that's all the way up until now that's been going on, it's COINTELPRO from the government.
The report identified black identity extremists as a threat to law enforcement. Critics say the report is eerily similar to the FBI's 20th century counterintelligence program.
COINTELPRO was an FBI operation established in the 50s by J. Edgar Hoover to target African Americans who were fighting for justice and equality. He targeted Dr. King, he targeted Malcolm X, and over 80% of the targets of COINTELPRO were members of the Black Panther Party.
Everything from the Black Panther Party movement to the Nation of Islam, everything was infiltrated by the FBI, and this brought these black movements to their knees. Then was the introduction of everything else going into the 70s that began to weaken the structure movement. I had a brother ask before, what happened to these people in these movements? Things like COINTELPRO, the introduction of drugs, systemic racism, over policing, and you have to remember this is the 60s, 70s. The Ku Klux Klan had resurrected itself in all types of forms of police, political, social infrastructure. We were just still trying to recover from redlining in this time period. Black people didn't have a snowball chance in hell politically in this time frame of the late 60s and 70s. So we had to, out of a necessity, form our own independent party, which was the Black Panther Party, which was unfortunately toppled by military tactics from the FBI.
I attended many Black Panther Party functions. I was part of the breakfast program. We registered many people, the African American community and others, to vote. Well, the FBI during COINTELPRO would try to turn members of the Black Panther Party against each other. Agent provocateurs were placed within the party to try to sow dissent.
I was the coordinator of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. In December 4th, 1969, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, two members of the Black Panther Party, were murdered. And they put an informant, William O'Neill, planted him inside the Panther Party.
We can mourn today, but if we understood, Fred, that we are dedicated, that his life wasn't given in vain.
The National Director of the FBI said that the Black Panther Party was the #1 threat to national security of this nation. And that created the condition for law enforcement agents all across this nation to go after Panthers. That program that they did, in some sense, we ought to be thankful for, because that put in writing for everybody to see. We're still in the eyes of so many, nothing but a bunch
So COINTELPRO is just one thing, but it's sellout niggas in every facet of everything we do. So COINTELPRO is just like a heightened sellout culture. That's it.
You know, and that old saying, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, is true. It's a fever, it's a feeling, it's a blood boiling in our bodies that let us know who our people are. And those are the people that we support. And I think we'll get back to that one day. I think it's really important that we look at the way the system is designed to disrupt. If you remember ever hearing this, if there's more than 3 of them, they're doing something no good. There's more than 2 of them, they're up to no good. That has been their mantra or MO for destruction. They have their little people that they introduce into these groups to try to find out what wicked things we're doing. And it probably is nothing but singing some church songs, but who knows? But that by itself opens the door for another conversation. Why do you have to throw so much attention with secrecy and ill will towards a people? in any organization we had, in any religious organization we had. I mean, this is religious organizations have been proven to have been infiltrated, and leaders have found themselves unalived because of people from outside sources being and infiltrating into it. And just saying that, don't think that we today aren't going through the same thing. Just bringing up who we are opens the door for those knuckleheads to try to find agents to come in, infiltrate, find us doing something dirty so they can stop us from talking. And that's the scary part of it. You know, just telling the truth is the worst thing you could do today.
Here you got the panel standing up saying XYZ. Oh, we can't have them telling them that it's going to make them realize, make them remember. So let's throw this in their face. That's where you start to see that dynamic change in the 70s in a matter of less than a decade. We done went through 3 different phases of being Black, African American, Negro, and colored. You would look at, COINTELPRO looks at Black Panthers, the GDs, the Bloods, the Crips, all of which started off as organizations, as communist parties, which made them gangs. So what does that make the Klan? Isn't that a gang too? Isn't that a communist party? They're only communists because they're standing up for their people and they're tired. That's the only reason they became a communist. But the moment you picked up and started doing violence against people in your community that you swore to protect, then you became a gang. That was the whole point. That's what one of the disruptions is, to get you to dislike the person standing next to you because they may have or may look like they have a little bit more than you. And instead of you going over like your ancestors did, trying to figure out what they did to get to that point, they incite violence.
$1.6 trillion in consumerism. Do you know how rich that makes us? Now, if we could take that same money and bring it from love to bring a society back together, our society back together, and stop looking hard and mean mugging and doing all the things that we do, there's no way in the world that any one of those agents or propaganda will affect us, because we'll be listening to ourselves again. I mean, that's my thought. That's my hope. You know, as I said earlier, I don't have that many years in front of me, but I know if I keep talking the way I do, I keep trying to write and catch the minds of young people, maybe they will look inside themselves and say, you know, I want to be better, so I need to do better.
So what we have to realize is a time in America where war was prominent. War was prominent. During World War II, tens of thousands of Black people left the southern states and they migrated. This is the second Great Migration. What was the first Great Migration? That happened during what was called the Trail of Tears in the 1880s, right? The Trail of Tears was the first Great Migration. This is the second Great Migration in the 1920s, and then the third Great Migration happened in the 1960s. The migration of Negroes leaving the South from sharecropping to tenant farming, from being mistreated, being ran off by the Klan, and they're going out west, and they find themselves in what's called the Bay Area, which was the Kaiser Shipyards community. Now, these Negroes were not around the daily trauma of Southern Negroes. They're out in California. It's a little bit different out in California. And these are children, by the way. These are children. The Black Panther Party were started by teenagers. I like to call them young people. You had Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, and Eldridge Cleaver. This Black political organization was known as Marxism. If you know what Marxism is, this is a form outside of the Cold War with Russia. Marxism was like the next great political stronghold that America felt threatened by. Marxism and communism. These two isms scared the bejesus out of the American government for whatever reason. So now you have these young people. These are college students in 1966, Oakland, California. The party was started out of a need of an independent independent party. They were very strong-willed, very outspoken individuals. They loved their community. And they started what was called the Free Breakfast Program for Children, which later would be known as WIC. They started a program called WIC. So anybody want to research the WIC program, these brothers were responsible for starting the WIC program in a neighborhood. These were just the neighborhood watchmen. The Black Panther Party was never meant for national syndication. It was the over exaggeration of the white media that made these political parties deemed evil. And unfortunately, out of a desperate need to topple these organizations, such as the Black Panther Party, SNCC was another one, ran by the brother Kwame Ture, which was another great movement out of California. You had the mindset of people out of Philadelphia, Baltimore. The East Coast Negroes were now up at arms because there was a time period in America, it was called like the Bloody Summer. And there were riots and race riots and things throughout America from the 1920s all the way through the 60s, happening in Chicago, Ohio, Detroit, Philly, Baltimore. And there was another brother, another militant mind brother, Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was also a part of a situation where it was just sick and tired of Black people being exploited and being over-policed and being overran. Fred Hampton was an American activist. Now, you'll notice people like Dr. King get civil rights activists. People like Fred Hampton just get the word activist because they're militant. And these are kids. I know we see the black and white photos and the black and white videos and think these are older men. No, these are kids. These are teenagers and young men and women. Fred Hampton became a prominent in his late teens, in his early 20s in Chicago as a deputy chairman of the National Black Party, the chair of Illinois chapter. He was the chairman. The Black Panther Party was organized. So like I said before, you had Chicago, you had Detroit, you have Ohio, you have Los Angeles, you have Watts area, you have Baltimore. This was a network, a multicultural, prominent organization. And not only was it really banging in the Americas, word had got to Africa about how the Negroes in America were organizing. People like Fred Hampton and Kwame Ture was huge proponents of speaking to the Black diaspora globally. What else is happening in 60s and 70s? We also had the Vietnam War. We also faced with things called, like I said before, Marxism, fascism, capitalism is at an all-time high. Communism is at an all-time high. The late 60s and 70s, the Americas was at an all-time political high. I mean, Black folks were deeply involved. We're talking about votes. We ran the polls. We ran everything. And the idea of Black folks now taking their votes off the table and forming their own independent parties scared the hell out of white people. So people like Fred Hampton, he had to go. People like Eldridge Cleaver, they had to go. The sister Angela Davis, they had to go because they were resetting the mind frames of Negroes. Picture this, 1,000 Negroes with afros standing out on the White House lawn. And if you know what those afros represented, those afros actually reminded the white people of the indigenous inhabitants of this land in the first place. Afros out, power to the people, for all people, because Fred Hampton and others also organized with local Latinos. So it was the Black and Brown Coalition, or what would be later called the Rainbow Coalition, or the Rainbow Multicultural Coalition that joined forces. The multicultural political organization that initially included Black Panthers and Young Patriots, which organized poor whites. Everybody was involved. The Young Lords, which organized Hispanic and alliance of major Chicago street gangs to help them in fighting the works of social change. This was dealing with social, political reshaping of America. And people like Fred Hampton scared the hell out of white people. So in '67, the FBI identified Hampton as a racial threat. And once you're on the FBI's watch list, we know it's a wrap at that point, right? So in spite of that, in spite of COINTEL, in spite of organizations around Fred Hampton being infiltrated, and in spite of all those things, Fred Hampton still went on to push and rock for the movement. It says operative in the local Panther organization in December of 1969, Hampton was drugged, then shot and killed in his bed during a pre-dawn raid in a Chicago apartment by tactical units in Cook County. And to this day, you see areas like Chicago, Ohio, LA, and those areas still being haunted by what was set out to be a black social change. Now they're just urban legends and local street gangs. But Fred Hampton, Eldridge Cleaver was one of those pivotal gentlemen, young men in that time frame that was ushering a new mindset into the early 70s, late 60s, that we are who we say we are. We are proud. We are a proud people. And in my opinion, it echoes the sentiments of people like Marcus Garvey in the 20s, who said, "Rise up, you beautiful black people." It echoes the sentiments of people like Noble Drew Ali, who stood on the street corners of Newark, New Jersey, on a milk crate in Newark, New Jersey, was bellowing out to our people that you're not black, you're not Negroes, you're not colored folks. Those were all labels given to you by slaveholders in 1776, and it lasted to about 1869. This is a new era in time where you must proclaim your free national name and worship under your own vine and fig tree. So not just the 60s and the 70s was a resurrection. In my opinion, these were the great forefathers of people like Fred Hampton and people like Kwame Ture and people like Eldridge Cleaver. Those people in the 20s were definitely still holding strong to the belief that black people can rise above everybody and be great. But Fred Hampton, it was just unfortunate how they did the brother. I mean, looking back now in 2024 on how they do us now, how they shoot us in the face now, put us in the street and shoot us like dogs now, it's not too far-fetched to believe that they would assassinate the brother while he was asleep. And this goes on throughout the history of so-called black folks in America going into the 60s. So again, the question is asked, what happened to those black movements? They killed them all. They murdered them all. They sabotaged them all. Because at the same time, they was knocking out people like Eldridge Cleaver, and at the same time, they was killing people like Fred Hampton and knocking these brothers off. You also had the social political stronghold of black men in the neighborhoods now being addicted to drugs and going to jail for long prison sentences. So this war we was in was social, political, right in our face the whole entire time throughout the 60s. We were just lucky enough to have a couple of angels who held the torch for the black community.
Okay, first of all, the term COINTEL Pro stands for Counterintelligence Program. The Counterintelligence Program put together by J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, top cop in America, and it was designed, and this is also documented, you can research this, it was designed to keep a Messiah-like figure from arising out of the ghetto. I mean, that says it all right there. That's what that whole thing was put together for, to stop a Messiah-like figure from coming out of our family. And they put the whole engine of the United States government and all of its tributaries against us, right? Back in those days, I'd walk out of my house on Valley Street. The grocery store was half a block from my house. By the time I would get to that grocery store, I'd have been stopped at least 3 times by the cops. Not just stopped and frisked. There was the stop and frisk law. There was the no knock law, where they can come kick your door down in the night, and you know, they didn't need a warrant. They didn't need none of that. So, and at that time, the Vietnam War was raging, and you know, people were coming back from that war and looking for jobs and stuff like that. So a lot of the white boys came back and became police. And we figured it out that we was the ones who they was breaking the rookies in on. You know, when you come back from the Nam, the same thing you was doing in them villages over there in the Nam, that's what you're gonna do here in the hood. You know, so They infiltrated every organization we had. Just look at what they did with Fred Hampton. One of the closest people to him that sold him out. The same thing with Martin, because there's a thing that's playing on YouTube right now, Dick Gregory, where he's playing a tape.
At the Lorraine Motel. The press is always curious, and writers, what went on? What did you talk about? I say, we just talk preacher talk. What preachers talk about when they get together.
Y'all pay real attention
and all
to what you're fixing to hear now.
About 5:45, we walked on the balcony, and he was talking to people in the courtyard. He stood here and I stood there. Only as I moved away, so we could have a clear shot. Only as I moved away, so we could have a clear shot. Only as I moved away, so we could have a clear shot. The shot rang out.
Thank you.
I turned around and then knocked him back on the balcony.
Listen. Wait, listen. Listen. 30 years later, this brother never realized he would slip and say that. Do you know what happened when you're sitting in a jury room about a conspiracy and this piece of film is introduced? He stood here, I stood here, only as I moved away so he could have a clear shot. The shot rang out.
Yeah, that's what you heard. That's what he said. 20 years later, God pulled that out of his mouth. They helped them people set Martin Luther King up.
COINTELPRO, that's where they let the snitches became more popular. COINTELPRO is what they let people into what you had planned. And you got to remember, people like Fred Hampton, they were kids. They were 18, 19 years old and were genius. And if you do a little work on Fred Hampton and found out his background before he got to the Black Panther, he was taught by some bad people, off the hook. So what COINTELPRO did was go ahead and send in some people around his age to get into the organization he was in, to gather all the information they could. And many of those people were Black Panther people. Because you got to remember, the Black Panther Party was a government set up from the beginning. But people like Fred Hampton, and we were talking about this earlier, when you're young and you have a lot of fire, you can do stuff. And that's how they snuffed out the fire. They sent in counterintelligence. Find out what these dudes are doing and come back to us and we can fuck it up. So that's what COINTELPRO is about, to find out what you were doing, send somebody in that looked like you, Black person, African American, one of them, and you report back to us and tell us what's going on, and we'll fuck it up. And you'll see a lot of the people who did that went crazy in their lives. Wow. So you don't think that people be doing shit and it don't catch up with them, because it catches up with them. A lot of people just look at their bodies, their eyelashes, their nose, their hair, and they think that's what they are. No, you are inside of your body. I don't want to call it a spirit, because a lot of people don't have no spirits. It's something inside of you that's controlling when you blink your eyes, when you move your hands, when you breathe. That's you. Your body is not you. It's just like the avatar that holds you. So they'll send somebody in with the same avatar to extract information, to come in and destroy your shit. And a lot of those, the Black Panther was totally like that. Wasn't it the Black Panther Party who really started this LGBTYFG shit? Yeah. Wasn't it the Black Panthers that got Negroes on this cheap food? Yeah. See, we don't look at things like that. We only look at by what we're told. That's all. We don't think about it. When you look at what the Black Panthers, if you go back through the Black Panthers, I'm gonna do a program on that, on the book the Black Panthers did, you would be embarrassed to even call yourself one. But to leave you with one last thing about the Black Panther Party being COINTELPRO, and this is a question for you and everybody who can hear. Tell me an organization where all the children died, but all the adults went on to have government jobs, university jobs, and all that. Explain that to me.
Well, here we are, tribe, closing out this episode of Our Story. One thing I hope you got a chance to see in this episode is one of the same things I showed you in season 1. The reclassification and the obstacles put in place for the reclassified American Indian Negro. We went through a lot. COINTELPRO was definitely one of them. So until next time, see you next episode, tribe. Peace.